Hello guys, my name's Leo Gariboli. I'm a driver for the Apex Racing Academy and I wanted to give you a track guide at the Winton Motor Raceway in the Mazda. It's a combo that I think is quite popular just because it's something that pretty much every rookie is going to have to do at some point when they sign up to the service. So I thought I'd give my own interpretation of how I would treat this track, and hopefully this will help a lot of new people starting up kind of figure out quickly how to get through this track, as I think it's quite a difficult track. I wouldn't say it's my favorite, but it's definitely quite a technical one just because of the way the car handles. So I'm going to get straight into the video with just turn one. So we're starting our lap on the start-finish straight here. We're aiming to brake just around where that blue cone is on the left there. So you can see if I slow this down a little bit here, you can see just as that's gone out on my peripherals there, immediately braking. So I'm getting on brakes quite softly here. I've noticed with this car, you want to get on slowly just so that you don't throw the car out a little bit too hard. You obviously want a little bit of rotation going in, but I've noticed being a bit aggressive on brakes does tend to get it out a little bit too much, at least for my liking. We're aiming to turn in around just as this patch of grass disappears here, and we're aiming to get about kind of half the car over. So this curb here in the middle, you're looking to get around where the middle is of this dash here. And you basically just want to avoid bouncing too hard. So if you keep more speed in, it kind of helps as well, since you skip over them a little bit. But trying to avoid just bouncing too hard here, as it does really affect your exit out of the corner. Then using basically the same amount, if not more really, here on this right side curb, and just full sending just making sure that I'm not bouncing too hard again, lifting a little bit here just so that the platform's a bit more stable, and the rear end's not getting too far out, and just using effectively all of the runoff that I can use out onto here. So you can see there's these sausage curves on the left. Avoid those at all costs. I get sent to the moon every time I've touched them, so probably not ideal to touch those in a race or qualifying situation. But otherwise, these ones on the right here, you can use fully. So I can show you with the outside what it would look like if I show the far chase here. So you can see about half the car over the curb here, and then getting most of it over on the right here. You can probably cut maybe a tiny bit more, but again, it's just about avoiding bouncing too hard, and making sure that your exit out onto here is good, since as much as it's quite a short straight, you do still gain quite an advantage from getting a better run out onto here, just because it is such a long full throttle sequence. So coming up to the next corner here now, hold on. So coming up to the next corner here now, it's two right-handers. I'm looking to brake around where that 50 is, so you can see I'm already starting to get off the throttle here. Getting a lot of rotation into this corner, so with this one, since it's a very short straight and afterwards you're going to brake quickly anyway, I've prioritized a lot more of the entry kind of speed and making sure that my run through here is quick as possible, rather than focusing on that good exit. So you can see here with my steering input that I'm basically neutral steer through the most of the thing, even using some of that curb there just to get rotated, and using basically all of this runoff here. You can actually extend it quite far with this runoff. I don't think it really helps, just because you do get onto that kind of gravelly, sandy patch, which you struggle to get back onto the track with. But you can basically extend half your car over this curb here. That's the actual limit here. But once we are over here, we want to stay over here. And for this next right-hander, it's a very quick corner. It's actually probably my favorite corner of this track so far. Not much I really like with this track, but hey-ho. You're looking to just pivot the car essentially on the spot. And you can use a lot of this curb on the inside plus more. So I'm noticing, so if we go back out onto here, I'm actually a little bit onto the grass. So there is quite a lot of a limit in here, of which you can extend. So as you can see, basically as soon as I turn in, off the throttle, a tiny bit of brakes, and I can just rotate through the whole thing, and I'm using all of this runoff here. And that makes sure that I'm just getting a great run through the whole corner. And since the exit isn't, again, too important here, it's just making sure that I carry a lot of speed through that corner, using all of that rotation. So this next corner is a little bit trickier. What we're going to try and do is we're just going to try and take a line that just makes sure that I can carry just as much average minimum speed throughout the entire corner, and making sure that I'm just at this curb here, just at the very end. And this ensures that, since it's a very long corner and it's got a slight bit of camber, I'm just ensuring that I have just the maximum amount of speed carried through this whole sequence, and making sure that I don't run wide and just keep as tight as possible. I noticed the further I run wide, the harder it is to get actually back on power. So if I can just clip this curb and just touch it like I am now here, so you can see just basically just skimming it here. It just ensures that I'm carrying as much speed in while being able to get just the best exit throughout the entire corner as possible. This next corner is a little bit more difficult. So it's a very large curb here, so it can unsettle your car quite quickly. So my best advice through here, every time I've gone through it, is I've actually lifted off a little bit. If the curb was more flat, it would be an easy flat, I would probably say, on throttle, just because there is so much runoff. But the problem is, as you can kind of see here, is the moment you do get on this curb, it is a lot of rotation very quickly, as your car is basically just being pivoted over onto those outside tyres as you turn in. So I've actually found that if you do avoid this curb, you do kind of carry a similar amount of speed. So if you want to just make sure that you're not kind of getting too unsettled in this curb, I'd probably say you can just skim it and you can probably keep more throttle in. But either way really works, just because it's more about getting into this next corner here. This next sequence is a little bit more difficult just because it is just hairpins basically. This car is very, very rear kind of sensitive, so with these corners it's very difficult, and I would say gearing is very important here. So as you can see here, I'm just going to run it back a little bit here. So as basically, there's no real brake marker for this. It's basically just as I get straightened up and I'm smooth again, I'm immediately just on the brakes, getting very smoothly on. As you can see here, just getting to about 50% and just being very progressive onto it there. And with this neutral steer basically through the entire thing, just making sure that just as I'm kind of coming to a late apex here, that I can just basically get straight on throttle and just straight line it. And I'm actually keeping it in first here for this next hairpin on the left, just because I find going up into second and then going back down to first just causes the rear to step out way too much. So you're better off just sacrificing a little bit of that entry speed just so that you can carry a little bit more speed going through it. So as you can see here, as a result of that, I've got a very stable platform and I've not really struggled to get kind of turned in with that. And we're looking to brake kind of just as we start to get turned in, basically just for that a little bit of rotation, because I find it's better to just have that trail braking in rather than having kind of that snap from going from second to first. And then we're coming up to the last hairpin of the kind of the track here. So I'm carrying a lot of speed in on entry from that last corner there, and kind of doing a bit of a late run, kind of keeping tight. This corner is quite difficult on exit, since if you get on a little bit too early, you are just going to run wide and go off the track. But if you get on too late, obviously you're just going to get a bad run. So I'm just looking to make sure that I'm carrying enough rotation in so that I can get a very kind of tight line outwards so that I can get on power quickly. But also just making sure that my power is just very quick. And I've noticed as well, when you do get on power in this car, sometimes it does have a tendency to just understeer. So that's also another thing that makes it quite difficult, but you can use to your advantage. So I am rotating through here quite nicely. But then as I'm kind of getting into the rotation, I can just power on throttle, and I know that I'll just grip all the way through. Just going to run through this sequence again just on outside cam, so you can see how much it's actually bouncing here. We're actually missing the apex a little bit here, but as long as I'm carrying this speed, I think that's all that matters, just since it's a very short sequence and it's just all about making sure that I can get turned in, get the rotation, and get on power kind of smoothly there. You can see how smooth the car is on this second one here, and I'd probably say this is the most crucial one, just because this has the most impact on the next corner, which is the big straight afterwards. So having a good platform through here also just keeps the car in check and makes sure that I don't do anything too crazy. You can actually see here my point where I was saying it does rotate quite heavily mid-corner, and just getting on power as harsh as I did does actually cause it to just kind of level back out, and then I do get a good run through it. So we're actually coming up to the last part of the track now. So we've got this left-hander here, which goes on to another straight. I'm very progressive onto the brakes here, and I want to say I'm braking around where the 50 is again. Once that goes out of my peripherals on the left there, that's when I start braking. I'm very progressive on, just to avoid that rear stepping out, as the exit's quite important here. So not using any of this curb here, making sure I can just plant the throttle just instantly here. I do actually get slightly off, so I'm about 95 here, just because I am running a little bit wide, and I want to just avoid that 1x, but otherwise, essentially just full throttle in and just make sure that I'm using all of this runoff as possible. And then coming up to the last sequence of corners, kind of the make or break here. Braking around the 50, or if you want to use as well on the left, you've got that kind of Marshall post there, as you can see on the left there. Braking around there quite harshly in, getting a lot of neutral steering again, as rotation is more important through here since it's a very, very short straight. I am actually running a little bit wide here onto this curb. You can probably run a little bit more, but you just want to avoid that 1x, which is about where the white line is. So kind of using up to this curb as the limit is probably fine. And then I'm actually shifting as soon as I'm basically spamming the shifter here, going into first gear. As you can kind of see that the moment I'm down the revs, I'm all the way into first, as I've noticed getting first in here does give a lot better of an exit. So trying to get down into first as quickly as possible without it kind of getting unsettled is the best way through. The problem is with shifting kind of now, for example, into first, is you're going to unsettle the car too much and you're going to struggle to get on power a little bit, which means you're going to get a bad run through. So me kind of spamming the downshifts here, trying to get into first as quickly as possible, ensures that I'm getting that kind of rotation from the shifting as early as possible, so I'm never really getting unsettled mid-corner. And basically, with that, just floor it, kind of full throttle out onto this outside curb here, and that would complete a lap here. Thank you for watching. Make sure you do subscribe to the channel. I'll probably be publishing a lot more of these things. I'm going to put the actual lap in full after this, so make sure you do watch just to see that. Thank you for watching. Please do subscribe, and here is the hot lap.